Hey, if you ever feel like the worst person in the world and you don't want to apologize or confront certain aspects of your personality, I got a tip for you. It's simple. All you need to do is to Google the worst phenomenon you can imagine and the word banks. Now you can scroll away your guilty conscience by comparing yourself to some of the greediest scum the world has ever produced. You can also look up more contemporary topics and get an idea what happens behind the curtain in international politics and finance. And that's what this video is about. More specifically, I would like to explain how banks make money from the war in Ukraine through inflating food prices, inflating gas and oil prices, buying Russian government debt, and looking at proofs that the financial sector is still wealth managing the Russian state and criminal elite. It's an abstract thought to imagine that some bankers who sit in a glass building in some random city somewhere on the planet can influence food prices. But that's how the world economy works today. To make the thought more concrete, let's start with the fact that Ukraine and Russia produce 30% of all exported wheat in the world, and a wheat farmer who needs to be in a total random place in the world does not Ukraine or Russia. Let's just say rural Denmark, and I also got an idea where my occasional weird mispronunciations come from.
Look at all these people up here. I take it not a lot goes on in Denmark.
Let's also go back in time, not so long ago, just to October 2021, where this Danish wheat farmer is winter sowing his wheat into the cold, bare Danish soil, so it's ready for harvest in August 2022. Many farmers sell their crops before it's harvested via a commodity exchange like Euronext in Amsterdam. The commodity exchange will turn the future harvest into a financial asset that, for instance, can say the farmer will be paid $250 per tons of wheat when it's time to harvest. Now, for instance, McDonald's can buy the future harvest, so they got plenty of wheat ready for the burger bun factories in August 2022. So far, so good. The farmer doesn't need to worry about selling his wheat anymore. It's a done deal, and McDonald's doesn't need to deal with strange rural dialects and various regional legislation. They can just buy the wheat they need through this exchange. But it's not only food manufacturers who can buy this financial asset. Banks and other financial speculators can also buy it. In fact, financial institutions now make up around 60% of all purchases of these wheat futures. They, among other things, look for reasons that make prices go up, so this Danish wheat harvest will be worth more than these $250, so they can pocket everything above $250 into their pockets as profit. One reason why global wheat prices could go up could, for instance, be a war between the two countries that produce 30% of all exported wheat. And in the autumn of 2021, Russia sent many troops close to Ukraine's borders. A war would make it difficult for them to export all of their wheat, thus decreasing the world's supply of wheat and hence increase the price of this financial asset. Russia also stashed a lot of troops close to the Ukraine border in April 2021, where the prices of wheat futures also went up. When banks are confronted with this business method, they usually respond that they're not inflating the prices but helping the market to find the right price. That claim is false and also sounds ridiculous. In the 2009 documentary The Pit, before the world started to open its eyes to the greedy practice of food speculation, the speculators in the documentary openly brag about how they can influence the price of future commodities. They even claim they can create panic in the market and get even richer.
In my younger years, I was very aggressive. I looked upon myself as a leader in the marketplace, like pushing the market up or knocking the market down.
Thorough economic analysis also proved that there is often a strong correlation between food speculation and food prices. The most thorough economic protest against the practice was in 2011, when 450 economists from various global top universities signed an open letter to the finance ministers of the G20 countries to end excessive food speculation. And plenty of journalism and economic analysis suggest some correlation between food speculation and the current food prices. How much of the current price spikes that are due to food speculation is difficult to say, but some studies suggest that a food staple can sometimes double its price due to food speculation. Oil and gas speculation works more or less the same way. An oil or gas extractor makes some future orders on the oil and gas, a commodity exchange turns it into a financial asset, and speculators and energy suppliers can now buy and sell them. But there is an interesting difference. While most bankers will deny that food speculation causes price spikes, you don't need to scratch the surface very hard to find out that speculation does inflate oil and gas prices. For instance, the investment bank Goldman Sachs made a completely open report in 2012 that estimated speculation added 20% to the price of crude oil. One could suspect Goldman Sachs' intention for publishing such a report was to minimize how much speculation actually increases prices. That suspicion increases if you go a few months back, when the at the time chairman and CEO of ExxonMobil, Rex Tillerson, estimated it was probably more like 50% in a Congress hearing. The vice president of Royal Dutch Shell, Steve Hill, have also blamed speculators for causing a lot of the current price spikes. Whether it's 20%, 50% or somewhere in between is hard to say, but there's no doubt that some of the money you pay extra for energy at the moment is profit for bankers. Russian debt sounds like a slang expression for a situation you don't want to be in, and certainly not like something you want to pay money for. However, banks love buying Russian debt at the start of the war.
One of America's biggest investment banks is profiting on the war in Ukraine. Goldman Sachs.
Often when governments or large companies want to finance a big investment like a new railway or a big corporate office, they issue a loan bond. The bond will state that the investor will lend a share of the funding for the project in return for an annual interest over a certain period. When that period has ended, the owner of the bond will get paid the lent amount back, unless the government or company goes bankrupt. When the war started, the value of these government bonds dropped because bank sanctions made it difficult for Russia to pay interest to the bondholder and increased risk of Russia's government or Russian companies going bankrupt. Banks such as Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan exploited this drop in value and bought millions of these bonds, expecting them to rise in value again and then sell them with a high profit margin. It's not like they bought them directly from Russia. I have to underline this, they can't do so because of the sanctions. They purchased them from banks and individuals based in non-sanctioned countries who had bought Russian debt at some point. However, this practice does still help stabilize the price of Russian debt, which will help Russia and Russian companies issue new loan bonds, including war bonds that finance military activity. So in other words, while many suffer financially from the sanctions the West have put on Russia, some banks make a lot of money by helping Russia to keep the prices of the bonds more stable. As much as 60% of Russia's wealth could exist outside of Russia, especially in Switzerland and Britain, with its overseas territories. The wealth is materialized in real estate, company shares, shell companies, front organizations, secret bank accounts, foreign currencies, and various luxury goods. Many banks have made fortunes helping Russia maintain, grow, hide, layering, ignore, and transfer Russia's wealth. Then it's used to influence politicians and the public, finance organized crime, or as safe deposits for expenses the Russian state could run into. And some banks are still earning money serving Mother Russia's financial errands. Known for their otherwise timely manner, it does for instance seem a bit suspicious that the Swiss waited to implement their sanctions on Russia so Russian oligarchs could avoid them, for example by changing the owner of their assets.
From a financial standpoint, you are now in heaven.
We also know there are no legal consequences in Switzerland for advising Russian oligarchs on how they can avoid the sanctions. That was revealed in a Congress hearing by Swiss anti-corruption expert Mark Pief. And as of the 12th of August, only $7 billion of Russian money in Swiss bank accounts have been frozen, which isn't a lot in this context, as there should be around $200 billion of Russian money in these bank accounts.
Freezing Russian assets is like trying to freeze vodka in a freezer. It doesn't really work.
We also know that Russian oligarchs and their criminal affiliates exploit a British loophole with a type of company ownership called an English limited partnership. With this kind of ownership, the owners don't need to identify themselves. The British government have refused to ban this type of ownership, arguing they can be used to open bank accounts. According to a recent BBC investigation, they can actually be used to open bank accounts. If they legally can be used to open bank accounts, that's another question. Because banks often don't care what the legal responsibilities are, as long as they can get away with it. An interesting example is the Danske Bank money laundering scandal. From 2007 to 2015, Danske Bank, the largest bank in Denmark, money laundered 200 billion euros through one of their Estonian branches, with the largest customer being affiliates of the Russian government and Russian gangs. Some may argue, hey, that's an Estonian branch 1,000 kilometers away from Danske Bank's headquarters in Copenhagen. They can't know what some random bank teller in Estonia is doing. Well, they could, and for several reasons. The chief executive for Danske Bank from 2013 to 2018 used to be the executive officer for most of Danske Bank's foreign branches, including this one. 1 year, this tiny branch alone was also responsible for 11% of Danske Bank's total surplus, and some other banks didn't even accept transfers from this branch as they knew it was a hotspot for corrupt oligarch money. There are many similar cases. Deutsche Bank, the largest bank in Germany, got a similar case against them where $80 billion were money laundered. However, I do think the Danske Bank case is particularly interesting for a number of reasons. Denmark is often listed as the least corrupt country in the world. Danske Bank is the largest bank in Denmark. The links to the upper management of the organization are obvious, and it's possibly the largest European money laundering scandal in history. So my point, banks don't feel morally obligated to follow the sanctions or to avoid oiling Russia's corrupt oligarch machinery if they can make money doing so. Some governments even want to keep loopholes open. In other words, banks will keep oiling the Russian oligarch operators and make money on the criminal activities.
The point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works.
I've made some notes that I'm supposed to do some angry moral speech at the end of the video, but I think the examples speak for themselves. The financial sector is to a great extent morally corrupt and is even working against the public's interest by making our lives more expensive, and is actively working against peace in our nations. I hope you liked the video, maybe learned a thing or two, and if you got more examples of how banks are making money from the war in Ukraine, I would love to see them in the comments. All the best.